the reaction to the fans was great. You know, the last game that we did really well, and we had a nice a really suspenseful ending that, you know, was kind of ended it, but also left the room for the story to continue. And since then, you know, the comic book has continued, and there's been a lot of you know, a lot of anticipation for the second game. Oh, Injustice 2 is different in a number of ways. You know, we obviously have what people would want, which is, you know, a bigger roster of characters. Maybe some of the favorites that they didn't get from the last game are now in the new game, which is great. But we also took another step, which is, you know, the introduction of this gear system, which is really exciting. It really adds an entire new level of customization and personalization for now. Not only can you play as Batman, but you can play as your version of Batman. So that's really what kind of separates Injustice 2 from Injustice 1 from a gameplay standpoint, as well as also the much better graphics. There is much more exposure to the DC characters. There's a number of TV shows, and obviously there's a continuing with the movies and the comics and the animated series, so the DC characters are in a lot more exposure. But I think what's great is people know the characters, but we have our own kind of version of these characters. So Superman is different in our game than he is in the traditional representation of him. And I think that's what makes Injustice special, is its own story. It doesn't have the same history or future requirements that some of the other DC canon has to follow, but the characters are very recognizable. So we're very happy with how we've carved our own version of it. Mortal Kombat and Injustice are very different. You know, Mortal Kombat is a lot more of a close-in setting. It doesn't have, you know, the big superheroes throwing cars and throwing people into the sky and all that stuff, but and it's a lot more violent too. You know, Injustice is a kind of like a celebration of Battle of the Gods, superheroes, much bigger in scale, so many more years of history, you know, grind into people's heads. So very different kind of a design philosophy that we have when we make the two games. There is actually a very well-written line of Injustice 1 comic book. It's done an incredible job of just laying the groundwork for the first game. And so there's a lot of history that could be read there. But, you know, the quick summary is, you know, Superman was tricked into killing Lois Lane by the Joker, and then he killed the Joker and kind of snapped and became this kind of dictator, you know, conflict with Batman that he has with that, where Batman is more traditionalist. That is the real basis for the first game of Injustice, is, you know, what is the best way to get peace. I don't think I thought for sure that I would be working on a DC fighting game, but I absolutely wanted to. The DC characters have been some of my favorite forever. When I was a kid, I was reading the Flash comic book. It was a bit of a dream come true when we were able to finally do a fighting game with those characters. We've just recently introduced or announced Dr. Fate. He's a character, you know, a little bit deeper into the DC roster, but has a really interesting story. That's one of the things about Injustice 2 that's so exciting, is we're able to go deeper into the DC roster and do characters like Atrocitus, Supergirl, Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate is based on magic, and so it really makes for some fun fighting game mechanics, and he plays differently than any of the other characters. You know, his helmet is like, you know, this great kind of iconic image that people are gonna love, you know, just in terms of the mystery with him. But adding him to the Injustice 2 roster is just a great fit. We're very excited about it. Fatalities are kind of like exclusive to Mortal Kombat, and, you know, Injustice is more about, you know, the big over-the-top super moves, you know, crazy spectacles.